Hello everybody and welcome back to the third part of Stephen King's Cell. Here we go. Clee dropped to one knee and used the hand not clutching his portfolio. He was even more afraid of losing it after seeing the sprinting kid with the Panasonic carton. To pick up Pixelite's wrist, he got a pulse at once. It was slow but strong and regular. He felt great relief. No matter what she'd done, she was just a kid. He didn't want to think he had bludgeoned her to death with his wife's gift's paperweight. Look out, the little guy with the mustache almost sang. Clay had no time to look out. Luckily, this call wasn't even close. The vehicle, one of those big, opaque, friendly SUVs, veered off Bolston and into the park at least 20 yards from where he knelt. Taking a snarl of the wronged iron fence in front of it, coming to the rest, bumper deep into the duck pound. The door opened and a young man floundered out, yelling gibberish at the sky. He fell to his knees in the water, scooped some of it into his mouth with both hands. Clee had a passing thought of all the ducks that had happily shed in that pound over the years, and then struggled to his feet and way to the far side. He disappeared into a grove of trees, still waving his hands and bellowing his nonsense sermon. "We need to get help for this girl," Clee said to the man with the mustache. "She's unconscious, but a long way from dead. What we need to do is get off the street before we get run over," said the man with the mustache, and as if to prove this point, a taxi collided with a stretch limo not far from the wrecked tugboat. The limo had been going the wrong way, but the taxi got the worst of it as Clay watched from where he still knelt on the sidewalk. The taxi driver flew through his suddenly glass windshield and landed in the street, holding up a bloody arm and screaming. The man with the mustache was right, of course. Such rationality as Clay could muster only little managed to find its way through the blanket of shock that muffled his thinking. Suggested that by far the wisest course of action would be to get the hell away from Bolster Street and undercover. If this was an act of terrorism, it was like none he had ever seen or read about. What they should do was get down and stay down until the situation clarified. That would probably until finding a television. But he didn't want to leave this unconscious girl lying on the street that had suddenly become a madhouse. Every instinct of his mostly kind and certainly civilized heart cried out against it. "You go on," he told the little man with the mustache. He said it with immense reluctance. He didn't know the little man from Adam, but at least he wasn't spouting gibberish and throwing his hands in the air or going for Clay's throat with his teeth bared. "Get inside somewhere, He didn't know how to finish. "Yo, what?" the man with the mustache asked, then hunched his shoulders and winced as something else exploded. That one came from directly behind the hotel. It sounded like, and now black smoke began to rise over there, seeing the blue sky before it got high enough for the wind to pull away. "I'll call a cop," Clay said, suddenly inspired. "She's got a cell phone." He cocked his thumb at the power-suit woman now lying dead in the pool of her own blood. She was using it before, just before the shit. Yeah, he trailed off replaying exactly what had happened, just before the shit hit the fan. He found his eyes wandering from the dead woman to the unconscious girl and then on to the shorts of the unconscious girl's peppermint-colored cell phone. Warbling sirens of two distinctly different pitches rose in the air. Clay supposed one pitch belonged to the police car, the other to fire trucks. He supposed you could tell the difference if you lived in the city. But he didn't. He lived in Kent, Pont, Maine, and he wished with all his heart that he were there right now. What happened just before the shit hit the fan was that Parachute Woman had called her friend Maddie to tell her she's gotten her hair done, and one of the Pixie Light's friend had called her. Pixie Dart had listened into this latter call. After all, 3 of them had gone crazy. "You're not thinking." From behind him to the east came the biggest explosion yet, a terrific shotgun blast of sound. Clay leaped to his feet. He and the little man in the tweed suit looked wildly at each other, then towards Chinatown and Boston North End. They couldn't see what had exploded, but now a much larger and darker plume of smoke was rising above the buildings on the horizon. What they were looking at in Boston PD radio car and a ladder fire truck pulled up in front of the Four Seasons across the street. Clay glanced that way in time to see a second jumper set sail from the top story of the hotel, followed by another pair from the roof. To Clay it looked as if the 2 coming from the roof were actually brawling with each other on the way down. "Jesus, Mary and Joseph, no!" a woman screamed, her voice breaking. "Oh no, no more, no more!" The first of the suicidal trio hit the rear of the police car, splattering the truck with hair and gore, shattering the back window. The other 2 hit the hook and the ladder as firemen dressed in bright yellow coats scattered like improbable birds. "No!" the woman shrieked. "No more! No more! Dear God, no more!" But here came a woman from the 5th and 6th floor, tumbling like a crazy acrobat, striking a policeman who was peering up and surely killing him even as she killed herself. From the north there came another of those great roaring explosions, the sound of the devil firing a shotgun in hell, and once again Clay looked at the little man, who was looking anxiously back up at him. More smoke was rising in the sky, and in spite of the brisk breeze, the blue over there was almost blotted out. "They're using planes again," the little man said. "The dirty bastards are using planes again." As if to underline the idea, a third monstrous explosion came rolling to them from the city's northeast. "But that's Logan over there." Clay was once again finding it hard to talk, and even hard to think. All he really seemed to have in mind was some sort of half-baked joke. "Did you hear the one about," inserts his favorite ethnic group here, "terrorists who decided to bring America to its knees by blowing up the airport?" "So?" the little man asked truciously. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, sorry. "Why not the Hancock building or the Prue?" The little man's shoulders slumped. "I don't know. I only know I want to get off the street." As if to emphasize his point, half a dozen more young people sprinted past him. Boston was a city of young people, Clay had noticed. All those colleges, these 3 men and 3 women, were running lootless, at least, and they most assuredly weren't laughing. As they ran, one of the young men pulled out his cell phone and stuck it to his ear. Clay glanced across the street and saw that a second black and white unit had pulled up behind the first. No need to use the parachute woman's cell phone after all, which was good, since he decided he really didn't want to do that. He could just walk across the street and talk to them, except he wasn't sure that he dared to cross Bolson Street just now. Even if he did, would they come over here to look at one unconscious girl when they had God knew how many casualties over there? And as he watched, the firemen began piling back on board their hook and ladder unit. It looked like they were heading someplace else. Over to Logan Airport, quite likely, or... Oh my god, Jesus. Watch out for this one, said the little man with the mustache, speaking in a low, tight voice. He was looking west, along Bolson, back towards downtown, in direction Clay had been coming from when his major object in life had been reaching. Sharon on the phone. He even knew how he was going to start. Good news, hon. No matter how it comes out, between us, there'll always be shoes for the kid. In his head, he had sounded light and funny, like the old days. There was nothing funny about it. Coming towards them, not running, but walking in long, flat-footed stride was a man about 50 wearing suit pants and the remains of a shirt and tie. The pants were grey. It was impossible to tell what color the shirt and tie had been, because both were now shredded and stained with blood. In his right hand, the man held what looked like a butcher knife with an 18-inch blade. Clay actually believed he had seen this knife in the window of a shop called Soul Kitchen on his walk back from his meeting at the Copley Square Hotel. The row of knives in the window, Swedish steel, the little engraved card in front of them proclaimed, had shone in the cunning glow of hidden downlighters, but this blade had done a good deal of work since its liberation, or a bad deal of it, and was now dull with blood. The man in the tattered shirt swung the knife as he closed in on them with his... Well, okay, let me read that again. That was really weird. The man with the tattered shirt swung the knife as he closed in on them with his flat-footed strides, the blade cutting short up and down arcs in the air. He broke the pattern only once to slash at himself. A fresh reel of blood ran through a new rip in his tattered shirt. The remains of his thigh flapped as he closed the distance. He hectored them like a backwoods preacher speaking in tongue at the moment of some divine Godhead revelation. Eli, he cried, Eli, Eli, blah blah blah. And now he brought the knife back to his right hip and then beyond it, and Clay, whose visual sense was overdeveloped, at once saw the sweeping stroke that would follow, the gutting stroke, made even as he continued his nuthouse march to nowhere through the October afternoon and those flat-footed declamatory strides. Okay, that part was very hard to read. Look out, the little guy with the mustache screamed. But he wasn't looking out, not the little guy with the mustache. The little guy with the mustache, the first normal person with whom Clay Riddle had spoken since this craziness began, who had in fact spoken to him, which had probably taken some courage on the circumstances, was frozen in place, his eyes bigger than ever behind the lenses of his gold-rimmed spectacles. And he was a crazy guy going for him because of the two men. The one with the mustache was smaller and looked like easier prey. If so, maybe Mr. Speaking in Tongue wasn't completely crazy. And suddenly Clay was mad as well as scared. Mad the way he might have been if he looked through a schoolyard fence and seen a bully getting ready to tune up on the smaller younger kid. Look out! The little man with the mustache almost wheeled, still not moving, as his dad swept towards him. Dad, liberated from a shop called Soul Kitchen, where diners, club and visa were no doubt accepted, along with a young personal check if accompanied by bank card. Clay didn't think. He simply picked up his portfolio again by its double handle and stuck it between the upcoming knife and its acquaintance in the tweed suit. The bleed went all the way through with a hollow tuck, but the tip stopped 4 inches short of the little man's belly. Little man finally came to his senses and grinched aside towards the common, shrieking for help at the top of his lungs. The man in the shred shirt and tie, he was getting a bit jowly in the cheek and heavy in the neck, as if his personal equation of good meals and good exercise had stopped balancing about 2 years ago. Abruptly ceased his nonsense. Peroration? Peroration. I've never heard that word before. Peroration? His face took on a look of various perplexity that stopped short of surprise, let alone amazement. What Clay felt was a species of dismal outrage. That Blade had gone through all of his Dark Wonder pictures. To him, they were always pictures, never drawings or illustrations, and it seems to him that the tuck sound might as well have been the blade penetrating a special chamber of his heart. That was stupid when he had reprose and everything, including the four-colored splash pages, but it didn't change how he felt. The madman's blade had skewered Sorcerer's John, named after his own son, of course, the wizard, Flack, Frank, and Posse Boys, Sleeping Jean, Poison Sally, Lil Astolet, Blue Witch, and of course Ray Damon, the Dark Wanderer himself. His own fantastic creatures living in the cave of his imagination and posed to set him free from the drudgery of teaching art in the dozen rural Maine schools, driving thousands of miles a month, and practically living out of his car. He could swear he had heard that moan when the madman's sweetest blade pierced them where they slept in their innocency. Furious, not caring about the blade, at least for the moment, he drove the man in the shredded shirt rapidly backwards, using the portfolio as a kind of shield, growing angrier as it bent into a wide V-shape around the knife blade. The lunatic hollered and tried to pull his blade back. It was caught too firmly for him to do so. Clay shouted and planted his left foot behind the lunatic's back-pedaling legs. It would occur to him later that the body knows how to fight when it has to, that it's a secret the body keeps, just as it does the secrets on how to run or jump a creek or throw a fuck or quite lightly die when there's no other choice. That under conditions of extreme stress is simply taken over and does what needs doing, while the brain stands off to one side, unable to do anything but whistle and tap its foot and look up to the sky, or contemplate the sound a knife makes going through the portfolio your wife gave you for your 28th birthday. And for that, I'm gonna stop it here, guys, for this moment of the book reading. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit harder to get through this because it started to like go a little bit too much into detail from the surroundings of the events, but I'm still enjoying the story till now. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.